What's up, everyone? Welcome back to WunderCAST. I'm your host, Riker Taylor. I'm joined in studio with producer Alex. Say hi to the beautiful people, Alex.
Hello, all the beautiful people.
And I've got a very special guest, Don Caldwell. He's the founder of Caldwell Entertainment. He's a local music legend, to say the least. So I'm really excited to speak with him. So, Don, thank you so much for being a part of this.
Well, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Why don't we kind of just get a little bit, talk to the listeners, tell them a little bit about yourself. How'd you get here? What are you doing? That kind of thing.
Well, I got up this morning about, let's say I drove my car.
Sure.
No, I started, basically I started in the music business being a player and being a saxophonist. And when I was in high school, I wanted to be a baseball player, but I got hurt playing football. And that kind of ruined the baseball career. And I heard a record of a great saxophone player, and it hooked me. I love the sound of it. And that's what got me started in the music industry. And as things goes, I had planned on having a career as an instrumentalist and record producer and arranger. And I opened a recording studio and went into business in 1971. And that studio led to many, many things along the road, and the last thing I do nowadays is play saxophone.
Okay, so you come full circle back to the saxophone.
Yeah, I
thing.
would like to be back to it.
Oh, okay,
yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So the music scene, the music industry has seen a lot of changes over the years. Some good, some maybe not so good. Kind of talk to me about your opinion just on like music culture in general right now. Like, where do you think it's at? Where do you think it's going? What do you like? I know that's a very deep and layered question.
I really wish I knew where it was going because my life would be real bright if I could predict the future. But
sure.
The music business, the technology has changed. It's parallel to everything society, and it's mainly because of the technology development. My career in music, when I started my recording studio, excuse me, Norman Petty had done all of the things he did over in Clovis with Buddy Holly and Roy Orbison and all the people that were legendary 50s and 60s performers, Jimmy Gilmer and the Fireballs, and had great success in that, and I had worked a lot in that studio over there. And I saw that there was a tremendous need to have a recording studio in Lubbock because people traveling back and forth, and Norman could only do so much. And I started, but the technology at that time, I started my recording studio with 2 reel-to-reel tape machines and 3 4-input Shure mixers. Okay. And you couldn't buy equipment that could do everything you wanted it to do for less than $500,000. Sure. The equipment was so high back then. Yeah. So the development of the technology was directly, related to what you were capable of doing. And fortunately, we cut some records in the 70s that are now classics. One record was Lubbock on Everything by Terry Allen. Was picked in 1980 as one of the top 4 most important record albums of that decade. And we did it on a couple of radio mixers, and we were having to struggle. There was you couldn't find equipment. Now, nowadays you walk into Guitar Center and you can buy equipment for $700 or $800 that did more than what we did for $10,000. Sure. But the technology and saying where it came from, the idea that the talent is the thing that makes everything happen, and that the art is if you're truly an artist, then you're going to use all of the technology that's available at the time. Well, now the music can be just about anything anybody can dream up, any sound, so I think we have a bright future in music. I just listened to some music last night, some things that I absolutely did not know were out there. And
what was that? What kind of music?
I wish I could think of the guy's name, but he is connected with Berkeley.
Okay.
And I might think of his name in a minute. It's a different kind of name. But the music embodied rock and roll. I mean, you always hear that there's a fusion of all kinds of music in various kinds of music, and that's true. But this thing, actually, inside the structure of the music, it was so complex. You were hearing, you know, a rock and roll guitar thing that was going wild, and the synth thing that was doing crazy things, a live string section, incredible acoustic piano player, beautiful lyrics. I mean, it's the most, music is going to go, I'm very optimistic.
Okay.
You know, so you asked where I think it's come from this incredible creation of art that does what art does, which is just tells you what's going on in a society at a particular time. And we've had Buddy Holly, we've had Mike Davis in Lubbock, we've had all the incredible James Taylor, all the wonderful artists back then that were doing great music. And we have these new guys that are coming on. The advantage now, this is a long answer to a
Oh, no,
question,
it's fine. This is great.
The thing that is so neat now is access to information. I'll give you a perfect example. When I was growing up wanting to be a saxophone player, a jazz saxophone player, there was a record store in Lubbock named Wayne's Record Rack.
Okay.
And their main thing was selling 45 RPMs, and then they evolved into selling a lot of albums in the 60s. When I would read in Downbeat magazine that there was a great saxophone player that was doing certain things, I would go to Wayne's Record Rack, and there's no way in Lubbock, Texas, they would have a jazz record. So I would order that record. It would take me 2 months to get the record in and finally hear what I was wanting to. Today, if I read about a particular artist, I can punch a button and listen to it automatically. So to access that information so quickly, you grow faster. So you see kids now that can grab all the information they need, and if they've got that inherent ability, they're going to pick that up and go forward and meld things and make their music happen. So what we're seeing is much better musicians than we used to have technically. I think the art level's still the same. You still have probably the same ratio of true artist. But man, you know, getting having these guys cram all this information in, doing so much, it's incredible. I love it.
And that's something that you just touched on there that I think is just a good life skill to have nowadays. Anyways, you have to have it's like an ability to Google things well, right? It's like if you know, because you can do Google searches wrong, and then if you're really good at it, you can find what you're looking for and really dive deep into a topic. That's something that I would say, you know, what you're talking about resonates with me pretty heavily. I've been playing the drums for a little over 20 years. I love the drums. That's the only instrument I play, though.
I'm sorry.
What? No, I love it, man. I love it. I'm very big into heavy metal and technical stuff like that. So that's just kind of where I go to. But I recently wanted to build myself a recording studio in my home. And to the point you were talking about, where the equipment is much cheaper now. That's the only way I was able to pull that off. Right now, I wasn't going for the high, top of the shelf type stuff, but I was able to throw together a pretty decent recording set for, right under $1,000. And everything that I needed to know was just a Google search away. So I know the different setups and the miking techniques and all of these different things that, was YouTube videos and stuff like that. So I really have seen a lot of people, there's a lot more home studios now than there used to be. And so kind of talk to me a little bit about that, this home music production. How do you see that playing a part in music going forward, especially with COVID and shutdowns and more people having to do that kind of stuff from home? Do you think that's something that's going to stick around long past, COVID being here?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Again, the technology is so wonderful. I'll give you an example of how the home studio thing is used every day in the big time music industry.
Okay.
We were doing a project on a children's group that was, it still hadn't been marketed, but it's a very, very good project. And my son lives in Brooklyn, New York. He plays with everybody out there. He has his own studio. But his next door neighbor played on a Grammy children's album, a Grammy Award, got a Grammy for what he did on the children's album. We hired him to do some work on our deal, called him and said, hey, Chad, would you put down this and this and this? And we sent the files to him, had them back that evening, and we had 3 guitar tracks by one of a Grammy Award-winning guitarist. But it came into our project right here in Lubbock. So I was talking to a young man yesterday about a production, and we were talking about hiring various musicians, and no longer do you have to think about this being just what you can get locally or having to fly someone in. I used to fly George Strait's fiddle player in all the time, Gene Elder, to play on country records. I'd fly him in from Austin. He'd come in and play the session, but we had to put him up, we had to pay him, we had to pay the plane flight. And now you can get the same guy to walk into his room and play the deal and send it back to you in overdub. So the technology and the use of it in a home is forever. It's forever because you have some of the best studio musicians around the world that have their home studios now. Lloyd Maines in Austin. Lloyd has a nice little setup in his house and plays steel. He still plays steel guitar on nearly every record that comes out of this area, you know.
Okay.
So, but it's all from the house.
Interesting, yeah. And I think another thing that's changing along with that as well is not just the studio stuff, but live production as well, because obviously COVID shutting down live performances for a while, and I know those are starting to come back to an extent, but I've seen a number of artists doing like live streams on Facebook or Twitch or YouTube or what have you, and you know, they might be a 5-person band and every single one of them is in their own home and they're live streaming and they've just got the camera angle set up on the screen in a way you can see all 5 of them. It doesn't probably carry the same impact. I know that it doesn't carry the same impact as like a real traditional live performance. It's hard to replicate that energy digitally, but do you see that being something that stays, you know, just kind of stays around as well, like the live stream aspect of things? Or do you think because of the lack of energy that that's something that maybe doesn't stick around as much?
Well, playing music is when you have a band sitting in the same room and playing, the energy and the playing off of each other disappears when you overdub.
Yes.
Whether you're doing it in that particular idiom or you're just overdubbing in a session. When you're sitting there playing with each other, you're feeding off of what the guy next to you plays. And it inspires your deal. So if that guy that you might be inspiring you records after you do, he's not there after you put your part down. He's not there to inspire you. So it's this mutual collaboration and moving forward together with a sound or the thing you're doing. So I don't think that people are just going to say, hey, let's do one of these things like that. If they can get together and play.
Yeah.
I just don't.
You don't think that'll be something they go out of their way to do if they have a better option?
I know. I know. I wouldn't. We did a bunch of those things while that was going on, and we did deal with 30 people involved in it. You know.
Yeah, it's just not the same. Yeah.
No, it's not the same. It was fun and it came out good because it was different.
Yeah.
But it's not something I would prefer to do.
Sure. Yeah, I think I can agree with that for sure, because I mean, I myself can just appreciate a good jam session, you know, getting a couple of guitar players together and it's the energy in the room, like you said, is just different. So talk to me about Lubbock in the grand scheme of things. When you think of music in the United States, especially, you think of Nashville, obviously. You think of maybe Austin, you know, you think of Los Angeles and things like that. Most people don't necessarily think of Lubbock. If they do, they go straight to Buddy Holly, of course. But there's a lot of things that have come out of Lubbock that maybe people don't realize. What are some of those things that you wish Lubbock got more credit for, that you've been a part of, or that you see coming out of here that maybe other places don't have?
I'm going to give you a little bit of this answer, maybe a little different.
Okay, go for it.
When I started in business, my dream was to have a lot of artists record and become national stars and make Lubbock, Texas their home base. Economically, it would have been great for Lubbock if all the money that some of these artists made came through a Lubbock bank account.
Sure.
And I never when I started the studio, there was no live music in Lubbock at all. Mm-hmm. There were 3 or 4 nightclubs, and there was nothing, no live music. And so there was this whole vacuum of music in Lubbock, but a lot of talented people around, a lot of front porch, garage bands, things of that nature happening. And my dream has always been that we could create an industry in Lubbock that would house great artists and be able to nurture their talent all the way to the top.
Okay.
So we did the studio, cut a lot of records, got a lot of things, a lot of chart records, national things. And but it was always we were doing the recording, and the artists did their deal and then moved to Austin or Nashville or New York and didn't stay in Lubbock, Texas, because the elements weren't here to really nurture their career and give them the framework to go all the way to the top.
Okay.
So to make it happen, they had to go somewhere else. The Maines brothers had in the 80s had charting records. My wife had a record that charted. Things were really moving forward. But the elements to keep them going in Lubbock, Texas weren't available. Mm-hmm. And I'm talking about mainly money. Mm-hmm. There was no investment in this community and vision for the potential financially. So it was always difficult to try to create that deal. Mm-hmm. So all through the years, I've everything we've done with Caldwell Entertainment was trying to make this whole scene around here happen where someone could live in Lubbock, Texas and thrive and do everything they needed to do right here, and the money come into the economy of Lubbock, Texas. Mm-hmm. Still not there.
Okay.
All of my children don't live in Lubbock. They had to go somewhere. They all do music too. Okay. My daughter is between Lubbock and Nashville, back and forth. Okay. But my son Toby is in Nashville. My son Todd is in New York. Okay. And they had to do that to make their thing happen. Okay. So where do I think Lubbock music is going? I think we've made giant steps since 1971, and I don't mean just me. I'm just saying we, Lubbock. Yeah. It is getting to the point, the technology is a big help, but it's getting to the point that things like that might happen. Okay. We still, we built the Cactus Theater in 1991, 20 years later, to showcase talent, to hope the investment community would say, okay, this is a good investment because I see that talent on stage every weekend and they're drawing crowds and they're doing this and that. And there was some investment put into artists during that time frame. So we went from a vacuum that people didn't even realize that the music had any value at all. When Buddy Holly was here, people didn't care about him. They didn't realize that he was a rock and roll icon. And, they didn't support that. Most of them thought he was a sinful rock and roller.
That's so sad.
But you come full circle now, and we're seeing that with technology and with the added interest that people have, maybe the next artist that comes along that can blow the lid off will be able to live in Lubbock, Texas, and love it. I know there's a lot more energy in live music in Lubbock. Golly, you can't hardly go in a restaurant in Lubbock anymore without hearing a band, which is a good thing.
I love that, yeah.
And if you reflect back, there were no places to play in the 60s and 70s in Lubbock. You couldn't find them. The 70s got Fat Dogs and a couple of clubs that were pretty cool for college kids. But, now it's everywhere. Music is everywhere. And when we started the Cactus Theater, I'll get back on track. Okay. When we started the Cactus, it was to give let people know what was going on. And I think the Cactus has served its purpose. And I'm really excited Daryl Holland has taken the Cactus over because he's bringing a lot of talent in from outside for people to see. I never did that. I created, but we use local talent. And we put together shows in the Cactus Theater that featured local talent. We still do that, and I still do that at the Cactus along with Daryl. But he's built a venue that's doing a lot more things than what mine did, the way I did it. So we're growing. Lubbock's growing.
Yeah. And it's growing, I think, a little bit. I've been having conversations with people in the music, you're the first one in the music industry, but I've, the restaurant scene and all kinds of stuff like that. And there's just this general sense of Lubbock's like on the come up, right? Like it's finally ushering in a new era of like some of this stuff that we've been missing for a while. So I would love to see whoever that next big person coming out of Lubbock is going to be. I would love for them to stick around. But what do you think might still be missing? Are we missing like a big live venue? I mean, I know we've got the Cactus and a handful of other things now with the Buddy Holly Hall and things like that. That's really great. But what do you really think? What is that thing that we're missing? Because I know what you say. I know what you mean when you say that, but it's maybe not easy to put into words.
Well, no, it's easy to put into words. It's investment capital.
Okay.
People have to invest in the artist.
Okay.
The thing for someone to be able to set in an area, they've got to generate the funds to make that happen. Mm-hmm. So if you had a group of people that will put money into an artist to do everything they need to do, then they don't have to go to New York to have someone put money in them and them live in New York. Okay. Because someone that invests money in New York, they want it to stay in their area.
Right.
Nashville, L.A., same thing. When we put the investment capital together in Lubbock to really support an artist and get them all the way, now with the technology, we nearly have it. One problem is travel. Our airport is not, we need more flights. We need, but there's some things like that.
Sure.
But mainly it's the investment capital. In the 70s, the 80s, if the Maines brothers could have put the investment capital together, they could have gone all the way. The next generation of Maines did. Natalie Maines with the Dixie Chicks. Mm-hmm. I mean, it was the energy, the Maines brothers, the whole thing. Natalie put that into the Dixie Chicks, and boom, they blew the market away. Mm-hmm. They were the biggest thing that hit the country music market ever. Yeah. And Lubbock always does that. You get Buddy Holly, they're going to change the whole national market. Mm-hmm. You get Mac Davis, he changed the market, TV and all the things he did, movies and all that. Waylon Jennings in country music brought a whole new thing to the deal. Joe Ely came along. Lubbock and the energy that comes out of the music in Lubbock you can't define what it is, but there's something about it that there's just this passion that is identifiable. I can listen to a saxophone player and hear a guy. And most of the time, you kind of tell the area he comes from. Lubbock is even more definable than that. You can have an L.A. sound, New York sound. But I just do
you think that has to do with the fact that they know like how hard it is to be that in this area, and so it's just like what you hear is almost that grit that it takes to do that? I
do think that. Okay. When I was growing up playing, everything came out of L.A. All the hit records in the 60s, everything was out of L.A. or England. Mm-hmm. And I never gave much credibility, especially in the 60s. I didn't give much credibility to what we were doing. We were going in studios and cutting and playing, and you go back and listen to it now, some of it's just great. But we didn't have that belief in it, and that brought a kind of a sense of passion and desperation to do it even better. That you get that, and I think you're right what you're saying. Man, it's not automatic in Lubbock. It's not. It hadn't been easy. And but another good thing, when we cut Lubbock on Everything by Terry Allen, that album has become recognized as a tremendous work of art. We weren't directing that at a market. I think sometime when you start looking at what market you're going to hit and things of that nature, the art suffers. You get
start tailoring it for the end user instead of
what's here.
Yes,
and so it's an interesting thing. The success of it, I would love to see it happen, but I hate for the beauty of it to be diminished in any way.
Sure, absolutely. Kind of switching gears here, I'm going to ask you just a handful of kind of more rapid fire questions just to kind of get your opinion because I'm curious.
Okay.
So as a guy that's been in the music industry for a long while, do you like analog or digital better?
I like things about analog that you can't. One thing on analog, you capture the entire harmonic range of an instrument, and digital still doesn't sample quite fast enough to do that. So you've got a certain lack of real true sound reproduction with digital. But it's not discernible by hardly anyone's ear. But you can put an analog tape on and listen to it, the same thing recorded on analog and recorded on digital, and it's audible, but it's not, you don't miss it if you don't hear it first. If you hear the analog, then hear the digital, it's kind of obvious.
Okay.
So I love the thing about analog, and there's some pretty good things with tape compression and things that happen with the way you record on tape that you miss with digital. But now they're putting out all kinds of digital contraptions to make it sound like tape. So but the whole thing, I love the sound of analog, but I love the sound of great digital stuff, and I love the flexibility of digital. I'll give you a perfect example. Analog, if you do an album and you mix down an album from 2-inch tape, 24 track down to 1/4-inch 2-track stereo, you have to mix it all down to separate reels and then splice it together on a big reel of tape to put it together to send to make a record or a CD or whatever. Analog, and that would take a day. You take a 10, 12 song album, you'd spend all day just dealing with the tape, the physical thing. Okay. You can do that in 5 minutes on digital.
Sure, yeah.
So it's the speed and all the things you can do. For instance, we're talking about recording and equipment. In a digital console, you have things that you used to have separate units for: outboard gear, compressors, limiters, de-essers, all the different kinds of equipment. That's all built into the digital stream, and it's very inexpensive. That's beautiful. You know, so
yes. And I figured you'd probably say analog because that's like that's I think a purist. Like if you like music, I mean, there is something, because I've done that where you can hear various things if it's recorded on analog or digital, and it does lose some of its, I don't know if it's soul or personality. Maybe it's like it loses a little personality when it's digitized. But
that's a good word. I say warmth.
Okay, warmth.
It just doesn't doesn't surround your. It doesn't melt into your ears quite as well. But,
sure. I know what you mean when you say that.
Yeah, I'll tell you one of the things that I've done with some of my young engineers that have come into the studio. We still have analog. I mean, some people come in and still record analog, but, 24 track. But some of the young engineers that just really have had digital experience, I've actually done this several times to take someone in the studio playing guitar and singing, just for an example, recorded it at the same time to digital and analog, and then played it back for the engineer. There's a difference. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. You've probably had a lot of different favorite styles of music throughout the years, but currently, what's one of the best styles of music? What's the style of music you enjoy listening to the most right now currently?
The stuff I listened to last night, I can't think of the guy's name. Hiram, someone, I believe, is it? But good Lord, No, I mean, it just, every day you hear things that are fantastic. And for me to say what style of music I like, I love jazz. I mean, that's in my heart and soul, you know. So all the new jazz players I love, I still love to go back and listen to John Coltrane and Cannonball Adderley and Miles Davis and people like that. I mean, that hits my soul. But the stuff I listened to last night hit me just nearly as deeply as that. And it's just, there's just so much going on. I think it's so exciting. And in Lubbock, there's some really cool things happening. There's a lot of, there's several pretty nice recording studios in Lubbock now. And then with the home studios, there's several pretty nice little home setups. Lubbock's moving along,
For sure.
And you talked about what is it? You mentioned Lubbock finally coming around.
Yeah.
It's just, the population is coming around. We went from 200,000 to what we are now, which is 350 or something.
Yeah, we're getting
like
close
that.
to, I think we're like 325 or something. Yeah.
But from 200, we like to never got to 200,000. And once we did, it just boom, 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 boom. So when we started the Cactus, we had I don't remember what the population was, but it was a lot less than now.
Mm-hmm.
So there's just going to be more happening. We knew all the musicians in town. Everybody knew each other. And now there's so many, there's tons. So
yeah,
it's fabulous.
Yeah, that's great. What do you think about the music industry just in general makes it what it is? So I say that, let me back up. If you look at like the acting industry, or you look at a lot of pretty much any other industries, they seem to be maybe a little bit more fair. Like if you're good at something, then you'll typically exceed. But in music, it seems like you can be really great at music and never really be known. What do you think makes that? And what you kind of know what I mean? Like why is music something that just seems to be so hard to break into if you're good at it?
That's
a very deep question. So
it really is. I have to give that a little bit of thought.
Sure.
Your thought process about if you're an actor, I'm not sure it's easier for an actor than it is a musician.
Okay.
I mean, that's the first premise. I think one thing, again, technology, there's a lot more kids that really go into music and do music and find their talents because of availability of the information and saying, oh, I can do that.
Mm-hmm.
There's tons more product out there. So that makes it harder to get famous. So maybe in the acting industry, you watch so many movies or whatever, and the information not quite as important. Mm-hmm. I don't know, boy. You hit me with something there.
Okay, yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if it is even harder.
I've just always found it interesting because you can honestly be not very good and be very popular in music, and you can be great and not ever be known. And so to me, it's like if you're a bad actor, you'll kind of it'll weed you out. Like you'll just stop getting offers.
I see where you're coming from.
But you know what? Like
you
can, I guess I didn't throw in the caveat of like, if they're terrible, they can still be charting. So like, that's the kind of interesting thing to me. Is it a political thing? Is it what is it?
Well, yeah. The platforms to expose the music, you have so many different platforms now. Used to, you get on the radio, you made it, and it was all about the public ear. But the politics of getting the mechanism behind you to promote that, that's the marketing thing, and the selling of a product. I imagine it's the same in nearly any industry. Acting maybe is a little different, a little bit more of a pure judgment at the end of it, whether someone can do it or not. But I'm going to be thinking about this. You just rattled my brain.
I've always just found that kind of interesting because a lot of times, a lot of industries, if you're not good, people will just stop visiting your business, or they'll stop doing things, or they'll stop calling you on the phone. But music, you can use auto-tune to the day you die and not actually be good at it and still be making bank. So I'll leave that with you there and let you kind of think on it. It's just something that's been very interesting to me. And
that's interesting to think about. I don't know.
You'll call me up on the phone in a week. Hey, I got the answer to the question. So
I had a friend that was a drummer that a great drummer too, very well known. He said, the reason, we listened to these records and all the guys we know could just play them backwards and forwards, play the music and do it just great and everything, effortlessly. But a kid cut a hit record, giving it 150%. And that energy about the thing may, just overcome the lack of slickness or the lack of real true ability. But the passion maybe is why some of those records happen. I don't know.
Okay, yeah.
That's the closest I can give to any kind of answer.
Hey, I know I just kind of threw that one on you there, so I'll take that. I'll take that as an answer for sure. Well, as we're kind of getting close to the end here, I know we've got a few more minutes. One of the recurring segments that we like to have here on the show, it's the only recurring segment we do. We call it tic-tac-toe. I used to play tic-tac-toe with the guest, but I had to let the guest win, so don't do that anymore.
Yeah, good.
But it stands for tip, tactic, total domination. So I'm going to ask you 3 questions. The first one is a tip. So if somebody's listening to this and they're like, I'm wanting to start a business, and in particular in the music industry and things like that, what's a tip that you would have for somebody?
Don't.
I love it. Okay, there you go. You can cut it there. Episode done, right?
No, just be ready to work your ass off.
Yeah, fair enough.
It's tough. Mm-hmm. It's tough, and do it as long as as long as you enjoy working as hard as you can personally possibly work.
Okay.
And have fun. Mm-hmm. Always make sure that you're finding joy out of what you do, but just be ready to work. It's tough, and it's hard to get funding. Every bit of it's hard.
Absolutely. And I love what you said about finding the joy about it, because I think that's important to have in pretty much anything that you do in life, is to have that joy.
That's everything.
But in music, it can show. Like some jobs, you might not necessarily, it might be harder to tell if somebody enjoyed doing that or didn't. But in music, you can tell. It's back to that energy thing. Music, I know we're going super deep here, but music's just one of those things that's like just ingrained into the human DNA on such a level. It's like it can truly move you. Like that's what's so really, that's what I love about it, because you can listen to a song with no words and still be moved by it, right? Yeah. That's what's great about it. And so, that emotion, that joy that comes out of it will shine through. The next thing I have for you is a tactic. So what's something that you do tangibly in your life that helps you succeed and has brought you to where you are today? So some people talk about their morning routines or their nightly routines, or they've heard this one speaker say this thing one time and now they use that piece of advice every day. But what's a tactic that you would have to share with others?
I think that you need to find. This is not exactly down that line, but I think it's important that everything you're doing, that you're always conscious of serving who you're working with. Mm-hmm. If have a servant mentality, and to keep that in the front of your mind all the time. Okay. As far as regiments and tactics and things like that, it's just always find passion in what you do. Yeah. And don't do it if you don't have passion for it.
I love that. The last question is total domination. So this can kind of segue off of what you just said, but when you go to a situation and you want to just totally dominate, maybe you're going into the studio and you're like setting yourself up like, I'm going to walk out of here with the best dang record I've ever recorded. What does that look like in your mind? What are you doing to prep yourself for that?
I just do it. I do it every day. Okay. I mean, everything I do, I want to have it mean something in the overall picture. Mm-hmm. We just started a video company, and bought a whole bunch of cameras. We're doing a weekly TV show now. We put some things together, and nice. We're now shooting a weekly TV show. Okay. Just do your to dominate. I don't know. I don't even look at it like dominating, but it's just like I'm consumed by trying to do excellent work. Okay. And I'm glad I feel that way. Yeah. My work has always been about the product, not the money. Mm-hmm. The product, make great stuff, make great art, and take care of people. Make sure that everybody gets a fair shake. Mm-hmm.
And I love that, because that's like true to that Lubbock spirit we were talking about earlier, right? I think that's what. You just know how hard it is to do what you're doing here in this area, and it takes that just dedication and that focus, and that if you put out a bad product, then everyone in the area is just going to point at it and see that this is Lubbock, you can't put out good stuff, and this is why we don't back it, because that's trash.
Let me tell you what you said right there, that deal about I've always tried to prove to people that just Lubbock is great. Mm-hmm. That Lubbock is great. We do stuff here that is compete with anybody. I play product that we do for people all over the world, and they all rave. So, there's just something about our own community. Yeah. It's hard to sell Lubbock on Lubbock.
Yeah, it's very self-deprecating.
Yes. Isn't that the truth?
Yes.
And I've been on committee after committee after committee for years, especially 20 years ago when we were building the Depot District and everything. And it was all about, we need to get people in Lubbock to sell Lubbock. Mm-hmm. Lubbock's a great place. We could be the best outdoor concert venue in Texas. because of our climate, the fall, the nice weather and stuff like that. But we can't seem to get the investment capital to build a venue to get promoters to come. I mean, Lubbock just doesn't realize how good it is.
Yeah, that is. We could go down a whole rabbit trail right there, but that is the truth. Lubbock just really has that. Oh, it's from here, so it's got to suck, and it's not. Yeah. I mean, there's some really good stuff that comes out of Lubbock in the art industry, in the business industry. It doesn't really matter. Like, there are good things that come out of here, and I think it's one of those people can't see the forest for the trees type of deal, because historically, maybe in the art scene, we didn't necessarily have all these venues and all this technology and all these things that we have today. So we'd have the occasional Buddy Holly come through here, but maybe it didn't used to be as good as it is now. And I think that just people haven't woken up to the fact that that's changed. Lubbock has changed. So.
I don't necessarily agree with that.
You think it's always been there? Then?
I think it's always been there. Yeah. Just hidden, a hidden treasure, but per capita, I just did a show with a guy that was a Broadway star, and he we did a concert with him, and he listened to what we were doing, and he was just like, God, this is the best thing I've ever seen. And he has it now. He teaches in Dallas, and he was talking, his students can't hold with the students out here, or he didn't say they can't hold, but they're not any better than what's out here, and it's Dallas. And so, I think Lubbock's always had it. We just don't nurture it.
Yeah.
What happened here is long before you were born, people were fighting dust storms and fighting the weather and fighting to survive in the agricultural business and the ranching business and things of that nature. And they didn't have time to look at the fluff, which was the music.
Got it.
They didn't have time to embrace it. And I'll tell you what, it's hard to get the history of this country because they didn't want to talk about it. It was too hard. It was too hard.
Yeah.
So I think that's part of the mentality of Lubbock. We just don't realize how beautiful it is because survival out here was harder than nearly anywhere. And it was the last frontier in America.
Yeah.
So I think that's the reason.
That's fantastic. And that's a perspective that I haven't necessarily heard when talking with other people about this kind of same topic here. But you're right. They used to just literally have to fight. They'd have to go outside because the weather was trying to kill them.
That's true. It was horrible.
You can't listen to what's on the radio when you might die from going outside.
Or care if old John over there was a hell of a great guitar player. Yeah, you didn't have time to go listen to him. Yeah. You were too busy shoveling sand out of the cow pen. It was hard, and I do believe that's true.
And then that just kind of slowly trickled its way into the generations thereafter. That didn't necessarily have to put up with it, but it just maybe set us back along several decades, and then just that mentality of I've
got to say one more thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
How much time we have?
Oh, we're good. We have a few more.
We're good. Keep on going. All right.
I heard the definition, and this goes a lot back to why the Lubbock's here. I was always, when I'd go speak to a Lions Club or Rotary Club or something about the music deal, always ask the question, why is there so much great music and art in Lubbock? People that knew that there was. And I'd always give some dumb answer like, well, it's in the water or something like that. And I still hear that all the time. But a guy came up to me, his name was James Epler, and he came up to me and he said, come here. We were out at Lake Ridge Country Club and where this talk was. I went up to the window and he said, what do you say out there, Don? And he said, I'm going to give you the answer that you needed to give. And thanks a lot. So we look out the window and he said, what do you see? And I said, well, I see a beautifully manicured golf course, beautiful trees, beautiful homes. I described what I was looking at. He said, exactly. He said, every bit of that's man-made. And he said, if you think about it, to live and thrive in West Texas, you had to have some kind of deep art in you to make the beauty around you because it wasn't natural. Oh. Man-made art. Yeah. And we make art out here, and that's part of the drive.
That's okay. Well, that just got really deep. I love that. No, that is true though, because it was literally a dust bowl.
It was, and before the dust, I mean, the dust when my grandfather came out here and bought land in 1898, it was all buffalo grass. It was beautiful. He said, described it. I didn't talk to him. He died before, but he described it. Beautiful. But when we started breaking it down and plowing and breaking all that grass up, the dust started. That's what started. It was we came out and destroyed the grass and stuff. And then all of a sudden, by the 20s, they were fighting dust like crap, and they still were when I was in junior high school. So,
yeah, well, that's really puts a lot of perspective on a lot of things. And it's like, why are we at where we are today? Because of what the generations before us, had to go through and deal with as well. So that's a fantastic perspective. I love that. Thank you so much for being on this episode. As we're getting ready to wrap up here, Alex will cue up the outro music, and I want to just roll out the red carpet for you. You tell me, give me like a 30-second plug of what you've got going on in your life. What's a new project you're working on people can check out?
Well, the TV show, the weekly TV show is going to be fantastic. It's called Lubbock the Music Factory.
Okay.
It's going to be shown on Channel 34.
Channel 34.
And it'll be a weekly show. We're in the process of recording it now.
Okay.
Very excited about that. Cool. But I'm excited about what you guys are doing. This is. Thank you for having me on.
Absolutely.
Here on this. I love being here. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. We'll catch you next time. Bye.